Allora, gli ingegneri sono sempre stati bravi a recuperare il tempo, insomma, infatti adesso stiamo quasi bene. La parola a Jamie Levin, esperienze negli Stati Uniti. Jamie Levin è il direttore delle energie alternative di Oakland, California.
Buongiorno. Yes, first you can hear, yes? Good. Buongiorno. I must first acknowledge that the Italian culture is admired by many worldwide and us in the United States. I think you are very lucky to be Italians. Your language is molto bella, very beautiful. I apologize that I must speak to you in English, but I hope I can communicate to you the value of what your region, what your area is about to impart upon with this new technology. So first, I must also acknowledge that I brought you a gift. Each of you in your packets have a free fuel cell bus. And it remains for you to assemble that fuel cell bus. So I will put it here. And so let me begin with the question is not if, the question is when. And what is admirable for Imperia and for Riviera Transport and for your community is that you are taking that first step to prove that this is technology that works now and that will change the face of public transport and our global environment for the better, and it begins now with this new vehicle. So AC Transit, we are in the Bay Area in San Francisco, and you can see the number of vehicles we have are 600 buses. We carry more than 61 million passengers, and our service area is all along here. San Francisco is here on the left. We cover all of this area with our buses on the right. So let's begin with what is the problem that we have to deal with. And why is hydrogen, why are fuel cells, why are these buses going to help us address that problem? And what is it that we must do to implement the technology? So first of all, we must understand that we are addicted to oil. And for sure, oil is important in our economy, in our day-to-day lives, but we have to begin looking at sustainability. We have to begin looking at renewable energy sources. So in the United States, we are only 5% of the world's population. We consume 25% of the world's oil. And as a result, we also generate the majority of, or the significant number of carbon emissions in the world. It is very difficult for us in the United States to say to China or to say to India, you cannot live as we live. We as developed nations here in Europe and Italy, as well as the United States, we are developed nations. We cannot say to these growing populations that you cannot have what we have. So it is incumbent upon us, it is a global responsibility that we work with everyone, with all nations, with all people, to find new technologies and new means by which to make our global environment healthier. And for the young people, the students that are here at this session, these are the challenges that you must carry forward. We created, our generation, much of the problem that you have to address in your lifetime. But we are at least taking the steps to begin now and not later. So in the case of the oil that we use in the United States, we have to import 60% of that has to be imported from outside the United States. And 67% of that oil is used for transportation. So therefore, if we can improve technology to reduce the fuel that we consume in transportation, maybe we can make a big difference in the future of our global environment. So what are the problems that we face with this dependency on oil? Well, first is the depletion of non-renewable resources. The last I checked, there isn't another dinosaur making more oil to replace that which we use. So we have a depletion of resources. We have air and water pollution, which affects the health of our cities and our population. And we have dependency on foreign resources. And I must say, this is my opinion, but I think shared by many people in the United States. We did not go to war in Iraq to spread democracy. We went to war in Iraq to guarantee future oil reserves. And so while we pay in the United States very little money for gasoline, for petrol, than you pay here in Europe, we pay in a different way when we spend $1 trillion to fight a war in Iraq or to defend our access to foreign resources. So before we run out of fuel, we have to deal with the problem of the economic impact of resources that are depleted. Now here you see in the United States, we sometimes refer, if something is expensive, it's not only expensive, it takes the arm and the leg. And so here you see the most recent prices of gasoline. This is not for a liter, this is for a gallon. So almost 4 liters. So much less than here in Italy. We still have a major impact. I fear that our future, our election this year for the President of the United States will in part be dictated by what the fuel price is. Even though we can drill all we want for more oil. We can go to the Arctic and drill for oil. But it will not make a difference in terms of the cost of the fuel that we need. We have to take much bolder initiatives to reduce our expense and to achieve sustainability. And of course, climate change is a very big problem. And for the young people here, for the students, you are the ones who are going to be impacted on a daily basis as you reach our age with the impact of climate change. And unfortunately, in the United States, we have a new Congress in the last year, our federal government, not our president, but our Congress, many of whom do not believe in global warming. Yet all the scientific data and all the facts that have been proven show that you and I impact global warming on our planet, and that we have to take actions to reduce our impact. So with this, we look at the technology and why is AC Transit, why is Riviera Transport interested in this technology? So some of you, I would guess, don't really know what a fuel cell is or how it works. So this diagram gives you some idea. We take hydrogen, and hydrogen is a big part of the equation, and it's not free. But when we can create hydrogen, we flow it through the fuel cell, and we mix with oxygen from the air. And it produces electricity. And it does not do it like a regular engine. An engine combusts, it burns fuel. But with a fuel cell, it combines it chemically. It's silent, it's clean, and the only emission out of the tailpipe here is water, steam. And if we condense the steam and wanted to drink it, we could do that, and it would not hurt us. So the fuel cell has the advantage of running at close to 60% efficiency. So that means if you take a unit of energy and you put it through the fuel cell, you get close to 60% of energy on the other side to apply to the movement of the bus. In the engine that's in the car or in the buses that you and I use now, it's only 18 to 20% efficiency. So the fuel cell is 2.5 to 3 times more efficient than an internal combustion engine. And that's why this technology can reduce our consumption of petroleum or non-renewable sources of energy. So hydrogen is the most plentiful in the environment. Our sun is made from hydrogen. Hydrogen is in our water. It's in all of our carbon-based fuels, but it is not free. You find it here in water, and that is the largest means by which we can produce hydrogen. But again, it's bound in the water molecule, so it takes energy to separate. It's in coal, it's in oil, and it's in methane. And the cheapest way now for us to obtain hydrogen is to use steam, to inject steam into the methane, and we get the most hydrogen and the least amount of CO2. It's not completely emission-free, but it is the first stage in developing a completely renewable future. So I notice we are 5 minutes after the start of your lunch. And I apologize, I stand here between you and your food. So you'll excuse me, I'll take a few more minutes if you have the patience, and I will continue. So hydrogen, remember, hydrogen is a carrier of energy. It's not a source of energy, but it stores energy. And this is very important. So, as I said, it's not free. You cannot put a well, like an oil well, in the ground and extract hydrogen. It takes energy to make hydrogen. But the value of hydrogen is you can take renewables like solar and sun and wind, and you can capture that energy and store it in the hydrogen. And with a fuel cell, you can use the hydrogen when you need it. So you cannot do that with the sun alone, with photovoltaics or solar. You have to store the energy. And the real value here with the fuel cell is the fuel cell, it doesn't care where the hydrogen comes from. So now here at AC Transit and elsewhere, we use hydrogen from methane because it's the cheapest means to obtain the fuel. But as we start using more renewables, and we are doing that in San Francisco, in the Bay Area, and you will be doing that here in Imperia and in your region, then we really achieve zero emission. And so the value of the fuel cell does not have to change in its technology. It continues to operate with different forms of hydrogen. So I will touch on these next slides briefly because I've talked about some of this. You've heard some of this from the other speakers. But why are we interested in this? Why is Riviera Transport, why is AC Transit interested? Number one, because it's clean. It's a public health issue. Number two is the quality of life. These are very quiet vehicles. They have the least impact on our local communities. Number 3 is the cost savings. The benefits of life cycle costs in reducing the maintenance and the overhead to work on internal combustion engines, to work on trolley buses. I was in San Remo last night. I saw the trolley bus overhead. There's a great deal of expense associated with catenary maintenance. With a fuel cell, the bus goes wherever it wants, and there's no continued maintenance. And then these global issues, we've touched on that. The importance of sustainability, of renewability, of energy independence. These are the reasons that we are doing this type of work and pursuing this technology. So our phase 1 program was 16 million euros with all of these companies. And one of our biggest partners was a big oil company, Chevron. And they were a wonderful partner. They supported us in many ways. But for the oil companies, they don't see the business value now. So for them, they experimented with us and they learned a great deal, but they will not spend $1 or €1 of their resources to experiment further with new technology unless they're regulated. This is where public policy, and for the students who may be going into public policy fields, this is extremely important that through regulation, we can affect change that the free market doesn't always or isn't always willing to accept. And this is one of the reasons in California we are world leaders in developing new technology, because our state, our political leaders are not afraid to take new initiatives in order to advance technology. So we have private companies, we depend on them, they are part of the free market system that is critical, but without regulation, we cannot affect change in a timely fashion. So our first generation buses, we carried over 700,000 people, and these buses achieved almost double the fuel economy of a standard diesel bus. Oh, and I should point out that even though, if you see these numbers, even though we are using hydrogen from reforming methane, we still reduce from well to wheel total emissions, greenhouse gases, by 43%. And then with solar and with wind, it's 100% reduction. So we are already making improvements in the quality of what we are doing. So the next phase of our program is 49 million euros, 12 of these buses, but much bigger. And to date, we have now carried more than 1.5 million people quietly, in a very clean, very comfortable way. You know, I manage this program, but I have a license to drive. I can drive a fuel cell bus. And it's very exciting to drive that vehicle. But more important, I take the bus. Every day I take the bus. And occasionally I get to ride as a passenger on a fuel cell bus. And that, more than anything, continually reminds me that what we are doing is absolutely the right path, the right course of action. It is a pleasure to be a passenger on the bus, and hopefully soon you will all be passengers on your own fuel cell bus. So this is one of the 2 lines that we operate in our service area with fuel cell buses. It goes through the community of Berkeley. I'm sure many of you have heard of Berkeley. The free speech movement began there. It's the University of California as well. And in this line, we climb up a 5% grade, up a hill, for 2.5 miles. So we test the technology really to its limits. And you can see here, the fuel economy is between, as Paul Genet spoke, it's between 8 and 10 kilograms per 100 kilometers. And that, compared to the diesel buses that we operate, is double the fuel economy, even though these fuel cell buses are 3,000 pounds heavier than the diesel bus. So we talked about first, second, third generation buses. With this third generation buses, through the work of Van Hol, we reduced the weight by almost over 2,000 kilograms in order to show enhanced improvements in the vehicle. And these are the benefits. I've spoken about some of these benefits, but the one that's very important are the drivers. If the drivers don't like the bus, then the bus will not succeed. And with these new buses, we had one of our drivers who said it was like driving in Disneyland in the real world. So it shows an enthusiasm for where this technology is going. Our public loves the buses. These are the percentages of acceptance that any politician here in Imperia or in the United States would love to see. The public enthusiastically embraces this technology. The fuel cells, whether they're UTC fuel cells or Ballard fuel cells that your buses will have, the technology is getting better and better. And what's interesting here is you see this arrow, and you see increased power, and then you see reductions in weight, in size, and cost. So unlike battery technology, where if you want more powerful batteries with more range, you will get more mass, you will get more weight. But with a fuel cell, it goes the other way. If you want, as the technology improves with more power, with more durability, the weight goes down, the size goes down, and the cost goes down. So just like your cell phones, your computers, or your cameras, with fuel cell technology, it continues to get better and better and more affordable. I won't discuss the details in this, but this is the biggest challenge that we have encountered, not so much with the fuel cells, but with the battery management, because we use batteries to capture regenerative power from the braking. And the challenge is managing the battery technology and the software that operates the hybrid system. On the fuel side, we have much experience with different technologies. To date now, we have dispensed over 100,000 kilograms of hydrogen. A kilogram is equivalent to about a gallon or 4 liters of petrol in energy value. But all of this time over the years, and the question was asked about safety, is that we've had no safety incidents. We've had no problems with the handling of this fuel. So our new stations are to become more scalable, more energy efficient, and greener. And this is our new station that we've just opened that is now fueling our buses. And I will show you quickly a 90-second video, and we are coming close to the conclusion. But the video, which is in English, but you can see the graphics, shows you how the station performs. So 1 second.
At AC Transit's fueling facility, hydrogen enters the system either from a tank of liquid hydrogen, which is then vaporized into a gas, or from a solar-powered proton PEM electrolyzer. Here, solar electricity separates water, H2O, into gaseous hydrogen and oxygen. The gaseous hydrogen must then be compressed for efficient storage and use. One compression option is mechanical compression, which is used at AC Transit's Emeryville facility to compress hydrogen for use in light-duty vehicles. For bus fueling, hydrogen flows to the Linde ionic compressor, which uses an ionic liquid instead of a solid metal piston. Ionic compression technology uses less energy and requires less maintenance. The system can produce and store over 360 kilograms of hydrogen per day and refuel vehicles at speeds comparable to gasoline and diesel, 3 minutes for cars and just 6 minutes for a full-size transit bus.
So there you get a good sense of how we at AC Transit are fueling our buses. And we are using solar and making hydrogen from the water molecule using solar power, which is very important to achieve the goals of sustainability. In order to generate that solar, we have installed now over 1.3 megawatts of solar power, and you see the installation at one of our facilities, and we will generate over 1,400 megawatt hours a year in solar electricity. Additionally, we are building a second station, and the second station will be similar to the first station, but for two important exceptions. One, we are looking at using waste gas that produces hydrogen from industrial applications in order to reduce the emissions of carbon to zero. So we would use waste gas for our what we call biohydrogen. The other difference is here you see we will install a stationary fuel cell, not a transportation fuel cell, but a stationary fuel cell, and it will be fed with biogas in order to have zero emissions with respect to carbon. That stationary fuel cell will power all of our electricity needs at this operating division. Very important to train all of the community, including our first responders, our fire brigade. And we have spent many hours working with the local officials to train them to educate them about the safety of the technology. Our biggest fans, our biggest supporters of this technology are the fire trucks, the firemen. They really embrace the value of hydrogen. We evaluate our program with the U.S. Department of Energy, and these reports are available on the web if any are interested in tracking the progress of our program. We also have spent considerable resources to develop education curriculum. So if any of the students are interested in pursuing this in more detail, then if you Google high-tech on the web, you can then get involved or be involved with an online curriculum or an online educational program. We, of course, are not the only ones. It's on both sides of the Atlantic and the Pacific, so in Asia, in the United States, and now here in Imperia, where we are developing this technology. Our next generation program is to expand within the United States to 3 or 4 centers of excellence with more buses, proving the technology and bringing the cost down below 750,000 euros per bus. It's important to drive volume up in order to bring costs down so that the technology can compete with the conventional technologies that are heavily subsidized as I spoke of earlier. And finally, this is the initiatives that we are taking in the United States with our federal government, who pays for the bulk of the costs of our buses and our infrastructure, to get Congress to adopt a much more aggressive financing program. Unfortunately, this particular Congress doesn't want to spend money on any new initiatives. So we will have to see how successful we are in the coming year. And finally, and I really thank you all, you've been unbelievably patient, but finally, this is our website. You can Twitter us, you can follow the progress of our program, and we invite you to do that. And I give my compliments to the 3 students over there. They already built their buses. So thank you very much. Oh, more there, yes.
Grazie ingegnere. Speriamo effettivamente che questa applicazione arriverà velocemente anche qui. È una nostra grandissima speranza che possiamo utilizzare questi bus, che tra l'altro sono belli e lei è stato molto chiaro, siete stati tutti chiari tutte e 3. Oggi ne sappiamo senz'altro molto di più. Quindi vi ringraziamo molto. 2 comunicazioni prima di interrompere.